Sunday, December 31st, 5:30 in the evening. There are some, what I would describe as fair weather clouds in the sky, so there's no guarantee that we're not going to encounter some obstructions. Jupiter is up there. You can't see it on the screen because I've set the brightness for the Handycam to give a better view of things on the TFT monitor for the Rev4 system. I am seeing, like I said, some distant clouds. However, overhead the seeing looks pretty good with clouds to the south and west. Tonight we're going to push on NGC450-500. We should get better views if these clouds will part and part company with overhead. We should get a better idea of how the images are going to be seen on the screen, as well as how deep we can go. I'd love to once again be picking up 16.5 magnitude galaxies, but in this case I want to be able to show them against our darker background of the TFT monitor. So we're about to head out. First thing, turn on the TFT monitor. You see it right there. The camera itself mounts right here, which is a little difficult to see. The Rev2 unit is right in the back and the 1.25 inch diagonal of the f8 150mm ED Skywatcher refractor. Now I get to do alignments and synchronization. Well, our first check of the evening, it's now 5:30, which is about an hour and 15 minutes after sunset, is Aegeon Galaxy NGC253 in Sculptor. Not getting a particularly good view. I am noticing as my eyes adapt that we have a lot of high, thin clouds in the sky. So we'll just start with this quick view of NGC253, which is about 25 degrees south of the celestial equator, so not a good part of the sky to begin with. And then let's flip over to NGC891. While there's no consistency to the sky, I am seeing the dark lane that bisects purely Aegeon Galaxy NGC891, one of the spectacular galactic wonders visible from the northern hemisphere on the TFT monitor. I'm not sure if it could be made out on the Handycam screen, but I assume as much. That is not a particularly good view. But I am a bit pressed. We're already like 5 days post full moon. I'm going to have very questionable weather through until the weather cycle plays out here. There's a lot of momentum with clouds and rain, etc., and sometimes snow here in eastern Oregon as we head into December and early January. Usually about the first week of January, we'll begin to have clear skies once again. But by then, the moon may very well be new and there'll be a limited amount of opportunities. I think we just lost our view of NGC891 to high, thin clouds. I'm going to go ahead and see if we can't pick up at least some of the 450 studies for a later comparison. It's very unlikely that this particular video will be posted up, but it should be useful to at least make an effort at it. Well, I'm seeing some stars on the screen, but I'm not seeing any hints of NGC450, a galaxy in Cetus. We should be seeing it's magnitude 11.5, 3 by 2.4 arc minutes, which means its average surface brightness is probably somewhere around 13.5. Spiral with a bar, a mere 79 million light years distant. We're only about 1 degree below the celestial equator. If there is a galaxy on the screen, it's right here. I'm going to have to recenter or resynchronize the scope to the east because I did synchronize it to the west. I'll pick out a star and do so, and maybe we'll come back to this one to see if we can get it all centered up and prove that that is in fact NGC450, which should be an otherwise very decent galaxy to view. Okay, having synchronized the scope to MECAB, I believe it's Epsilon Eridani, we can now see the galaxy NGC450 in Cetus, right about there on the screen. Probably it's the same galaxy because MECAB turned up somewhere up there. NGC450 is magnitude 11.5, 3 by 2.4 arc minutes. Kind of a football-shaped spiral with a bar in lowercase c. 79 million light years distant. We're at -1 degrees, and right ascension 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 30 seconds to kick off the evening's efforts to capture the NGC450-499 series. Here we're hoping to have a look at almost overhead, probably about 10 degrees from the zenith. This is NGC451 Galaxy in Pisces. Magnitude 13.9, but smallish, so it should be pretty intense at 0.7 by 0.5 arc minutes. Spiral with a lowercase c, some 222 million light years distant, and I think we're picking it out right there on the screen. And of course, with those high thin clouds, we're not seeing it anything like we might otherwise expect to see using real-time imaging, and about 35 to 40 seconds of image capture. 6 passes, 128 flood, and 42 auto gain control sensitivity. This is a brighter galaxy, NGC452, and well presented. Magnitude 12.6, 2.5 by 0.8 arc minutes. So a supra-Edge-on galaxy in Pisces. Spiral with a bar, lowercase ab. 225 million light years distant puts it probably larger than Messier. It is larger than Messier 31. You can see the spiral extensions there on the screen, at least I can. I think that's not a bad view. If we can get views more light along those lines throughout the evening, we have a chance of pulling this one off. Having skipped over a few anomalous star entries in the NGC catalog, we're now at NGC455 Galaxy in Pisces. This one's further south. The last one was about 30 degrees above the celestial equator. This is only a mere 5. It's magnitude 12.6, however, 2 by 1.2 arc minutes. It's described as a peculiar galaxy, which means it's probably going through some kind of assimilative phase, either being tugged by a larger galaxy, which is unlikely because this one's 237 million light years across, or having recently assimilated a neighboring galaxy. We're at +5 degrees in declination. Galaxy, I believe, is right there on the screen, and it's pretty intense core. Have to have a look at that one online. Now we've headed further north in Pisces to about +17.5 degrees. NGC459, magnitude 14.4 galaxy, almost 1 by 1 arc minutes, 0.9 by 0.9. Very large galaxy actually, because it's 567 million light years distant, which puts it at about 170,000 light years in diameter. Spiral with a lowercase bc, and as mentioned, we're at +17.5 degrees. And I suspect we are seeing the galaxy somewhere on the screen, although I'll have to map it out using pointers from previous identified studies. Magnitude 14.4 should be fairly intense given its apparent size. Well, this is a real test. We're now in Sculptor at -33, almost 34 degrees in declination. I usually don't exceed -35. For NGC461 Galaxy, magnitude 13.4, 1.2 by 0.9 arc minutes, football-shaped galaxy, spiral with a bar and lowercase c. It's a relatively close galaxy at 33 million light years, which probably puts it at about 40,000 light years in diameter. I'd be very surprised if it turns up on the screen, although I'm seeing something faint and fuzzy-ish right there. And frankly, the screen doesn't look that bright, so there's hope. Okay, here's a nice test of the seeing. NGC462 is a galaxy in Pisces, but it's only 4 degrees above the celestial equator. It's at magnitude 15.7, but very small, elliptical, 0.4 by 0.4 arc minutes, which I presume would be a elliptical class 0. Now we should be looking for this one as a very tiny and intense point of fuzziness. I hope my shifting forward to look at the screen didn't disturb it, but I am getting a sense that there may be a galaxy right there, which seems to pretty much be the position most of the studies are turning up this evening. I probably won't resynchronize the scope because I want to keep everything as consistent as possible for identification. So there's our look at NGC462, hopefully. All right, we have a much better shot at IDing NGC463, also a galaxy in Pisces, because it's further north at plus 16 degrees. It's also slightly brighter at magnitude 15 and a supra edge on at 1 by 0.4 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase a, 281 million light years distant, probably puts it at about 85,000 light years in diameter. I do see the galaxy. I believe it's right there in the usual spot. So, hey, maybe things are improving for the evening. Or maybe things are always looking terrible around here with clouds after sunset. And they just persist and I just don't notice them. This time of year anyway. Okay, we may be losing a little aperture on this one. The scope is not quite pointing towards the zenith, but we got about 5 more degrees until everything basically culminates. So it's going to be a bit of a rush. Here we have a galaxy NGC464 in Andromeda. It's 0.4 by 0.3 arc minutes, almost 35 degrees north declination. And when the scope is pointed to the east and almost overhead, we pretty much are going to get some blockage of the aperture of the scope. Now I've noticed that when there's no information about a galaxy, or very little information about a galaxy, it usually turns out to be an anomalous entry. But I will look this one up on the manana. All right, we're getting a fairly bright galaxy now. NGC467, galaxy in Pisces. It's at plus 3 and change degrees of declination, so we're probably losing about a magnitude to a magnitude and a half in sensitivity due to its position in the sky. It's a magnitude 11.9 galaxy, 2 by 2 arc minutes, which means you basically add 1.5 on to the 11.9 to get its average surface brightness of roughly magnitude 13. It's a lenticular spiral, pretty face-on, 245 million light years distant, and I think it's pretty obvious on the screen right there. So, you know, we may just pull this one off tonight. Once again, we're pretty much facing upward, and we may be getting some blockage of the aperture of the scope for NGC468, galaxy in Pisces. Magnitude 15 should be doable, 0.7 by 0.4 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase a, 235 million light years distant, probably means it's maybe 50,000 light years in diameter. We are at plus almost 33 degrees in declination. I want to look at the screen. Yeah, I think the galaxy is there. So magnitude 15, not bad. All right, another magnitude 15 galaxy, NGC469 in Pisces. 0.7 by 0.4 arc minutes spiral, 187 million light years distant. We're at plus almost 15 degrees. I'm going to have to shift to see whether I can see it on the screen, but yeah, the galaxy is there. I don't think this evening's going to be a waste if conditions seem, as they do, to continue to improve. All right, on this particular galaxy would be one of interest to us on a good night of seeing. NGC470 is a galaxy in Pisces. Magnitude 11.8, 2.9 by 1.7 arc minutes. But what makes it interesting is it's a spiral with a ring, 113 million light years distant. So probably about 115,000 light years in diameter. Look for that ring. I am going to give it a moment without disturbing it. I am looking at the Handycam screen. The galaxy looks pretty large. I think there's a pretty good chance we're going to see that ring. You may want to try averted vision. I've discovered that it actually works when you're looking at the screen images online, surprisingly enough. 3, 2, 1, contact. NGC471 is another galaxy in Pisces. Fainter, magnitude 13.3 and smaller, 1 by 0.7 arc minutes. It's also a lenticular spiral, class O, 186 million light years distant, so it's probably about 70,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus almost 15 degrees in declination, 1 hour, 19 minutes, and 59 seconds in right ascension. NGC472 is another galaxy in Pisces. Magnitude 14, 1.3 by 1.1 arc minutes, spiral with a lowercase a, 236 million light years distant, maybe 80,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 32, at almost 33 degrees, and we just crossed into hour 120 minutes and 28 seconds in this particular case. Galaxy is quite present on the screen. Interesting, I may be experiencing technical difficulties with the Losband DG11. It didn't inform me that it had actually tracked down NGC473, but I do believe I'm seeing it on the screen right there. It's a galaxy in Pisces, fairly bright, 12.5 magnitude, 1.9 by 1.2 arc minutes, spiral with a bar. It's also a lenticular with a lowercase a, so it's got some complex morphology. 96 million light years distant. We're about 16.5 degrees in declination. Let's see if this problem persists. One thing I've noticed is we're not encountering a lot of galaxy groups this evening. This is NGC474. It's a galaxy in Pisces, brightish and large. Magnitude 11.5. It's 6.1 by 5 arc minutes, spiral of the lenticular class with a ring. I can't be sure I'm seeing it, but I'm seeing something down here. Maybe we are encountering a galaxy group. I would expect the galaxy to be present there. This galaxy is 101 million light years distant. It's at plus 3.5 degrees in declination. I do suspect that is our galaxy. Why it's there and not there on the screen is another matter. But we are getting a very nice view of NGC474 under these circumstances, because its average surface brightness is bound to be somewhere around 15, and that ring will be magnitude 16. So not bad at all, although there may be a problem with the data and I may have to re-synchronize the Losband G mount, but there's a great view. Here's the faintest galaxy of the evening. It ordinarily would be right on the limits of the scope on a very good, decent night of observing with 5.5 stars overhead. We're looking pretty good north at almost 15 degrees declination to NGC475 galaxy in Pisces. Magnitude 16.5, but very small and tight, 0.3 by 0.3 arc minutes, and elliptical. 714 million light years distant, puts it at probably about 75 to 80,000 light years across, which is rather large for an elliptical. We're going to have to really scour the screen to see this one. I'd be impressed if we could make it out on the TFT monitor this evening. Having turned the corner this evening to NGC476, we're looking for a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 15, smallish, 0.5 by 0.4 arc minutes, a lenticular spiral, class O, 292 million light years distant, probably puts it around 40,000 light years in diameter. And like those ellipticals, galaxies, lenticulars tend to be a little bit collapsed in on themselves. We're at plus 16 degrees, almost straight on. I still have 3 bars left on the Handycam, so we might just pull this off if the weather agrees with us. Okay, don't expect much of NGC477, Galaxy to Andromeda. It's at plus 40.5 degrees. We're getting quite a bit of obstruction from the roof drive, a magnitude 13, 2.2 by 1.2 arc minute spiral with a bar and a lowercase c. 260 million light years distant, puts it at about the size of Messier 31 at 150,000 light years across. We are seeing stars, however, that's good. The Losband D hand controller seems to be behaving normally for NGC478, a galaxy in Deep South Cetus. minus 22 and almost a half degrees, magnitude 15.9 by 0.7 spiral with peculiarities, 302 million light years distant, means it's probably about 80,000 light years in diameter. Don't expect to see this one, but you never know. I do see something up there, but once again, we're expecting things to be more towards the middle of the screen. Moving on. Here we expect to see NGC450-499, a galaxy in Pisces, almost 4 degrees above the celestial equator, magnitude 13.9, 1.1 by 0.9 arc-minute football aspect ratio galaxy, spiral with a lowercase bc, and a ring. I wouldn't expect to see it, because this is a magnitude almost 14 galaxy, 236 million light years distant, and we are way too close to the celestial equator. NGC480 is a galaxy in Cetus. This one would be tough. Magnitude 16.3. We're also minus 10 degrees in declination, but it's a small galaxy, 0.5 by 0.2 arc minutes. It's probably quite intense. It's a spiral with a lowercase a. 563 million light years distant, means about 80,000 light years in diameter. We're at minus 10, as mentioned earlier. Maybe, just maybe, but I doubt it. Anyway, at least we got the data on it. We can look at the star field a little bit. NGC481 is a brighter galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14. We're at minus almost 9 and change degrees. This one says it's 247 million light years distant. It's a lenticular spiral class O. I would say it's probably about 120,000 light years in diameter. We now have 2 bars on the camera. NGC483 is a galaxy in Pisces, pretty far north, plus 33.5 degrees. Right ascension 1 hour 21 minutes. Galaxy's magnitude 13.1, face on 0.7 by 0.7 spiral. 266 million light years distant, probably about 60,000 light years in diameter. T485 is a galaxy in Pisces. This one's further south at plus 7 degrees in declination. Magnitude 13, 3 to 1 aspect ratio of 1.8 to 0.6, so suboblate, spiral with peculiarities, 100 million light years distant. And as mentioned, at plus 7 degrees in declination, we should be able to pick this one off the screen. Not too far from NGC 485 is 486, galaxy in Pisces, smallish, 0.5 by 0.3 arc minutes, but distant, 621 million light years. So probably about the size of our own Milky Way. There's no other data on it. We're at plus 5.5 degrees in declination. I'd have to look up to see what the magnitude is. There's something intriguing over here in the corner, but I don't have time with the battery running out to explore that. NGC 487 is another galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 14, 1.1 by 0.7, so a nearly oblate presented spiral with a lowercase a. 262 million light years distant, means it's probably about 80,000 light years in diameter. We are at minus 16 degrees, magnitude 14, should just be feasible, but I am not seeing it on the screen except maybe that little fuzzy thing there. Okay, one of the finer galaxies of the evening, NGC 488, is a galaxy in Pisces. Magnitude 10.3 and largest, 5.4 by 3.9 arc minutes, spiral with a bar and a ring. We should be able to pick that ring out. I'm not seeing it, however, all the way. I'm seeing the core of the galaxy. We are at plus 5 degrees, maybe that explains it, but really that ring should be around magnitude 15. And if I gave it some more time to capture some more photons with the imager, we might be able to make it out. But no, we have to move on because the battery power is limited. Now this one looks a bit like a looker. It's NGC 489, a galaxy in Pisces. We're at plus 9 degrees and change. Magnitude 12.6, but it's got a nice aspect ratio, 4 to 1, 1.7 by 0.4 arc minutes. So practically towards the edge-on level of the scale. Spiral with some peculiarities, 113 million light years distant, and as I may have mentioned, it's at plus 9 and change degrees in declination, but it is got a nice aspect ratio. Enjoy. NGC 490 is a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 14.3, nearly face on, 0.7 by 0.6 arc minutes, spiral 100 million light years distant, probably about 30 to 40,000 light years in diameter. We're at plus 5.5 degrees, roughly. Probably shouldn't have done this, but it fell within parameters. We're at minus 34 and change in terms of declination for NGC491, a galaxy, and you guessed it, Sculptor. Brightest though, magnitude 12.5, 1.4 by 1 arc minute, spiral with a bar in lowercase b, 171 million light years distant, and as I mentioned, at minus 34 degrees in declination. Don't expect to get any view of it, but who knows. NGC491 has an A, although the scope did move quite a bit. Galaxy and Sculptor, magnitude 13.8, almost pure oblate, 1.9 by 0.8 arc minutes, spiral with a bar and a lowercase d, which means it has some weirdness to it. I forget what that represented. 157 million light years distant, minus almost 34 degrees in declination. Heading north again, now into Pisces, although southern. NGC492's magnitude 15.5, galaxy, 0.7 by 0.6 arc minutes. If we be seeing it, I will say that the evening is nominally decent. We're at plus 5.5 degrees in declination. Look for something 0.7 by 0.6 arc minutes, magnitude 15.5, near the celestial equator. So we're losing a little bit there. And I am noticing something right about there on the screen, as well as next to that artifact, which will be more where I expect to see it, as well as something there as well. Who knows? We'll have to mark it up manana. Mount just went a little wacky on me, but I've seen it before. You just interrupt it and then re-enter your designated study. NGC, in this case, is NGC493, Galaxy Cetus, magnitude 12.5, largest, 3.4 by 1.1 arc minutes, spiral with a bar, lowercase c, 106 million light years distant. It's at plus almost 1 degree in declination. NGC494 is a galaxy further north, 33 degrees and change in Pisces. Brightish, magnitude 12.9, 2 by 0.8 arc minutes, so suboblate. Spiral with a lowercase ab, 242 million light years distant, puts it about the size of Messier 31 at about 155,000 light years in diameter. As mentioned, we've headed further north. We could get some blockage of the aperture on this one, however. A little bit removed from NGC494 was 495, galaxy in Pisces once again. Magnitude 12.9, 1.2 by 0.8 arc minutes, tending towards the oblate presentation, spiral with a bar, a lenticular, and a lowercase a. So a complex galaxy that's morphing over from being a spiral to being a lenticular. 188 million light years distant. We're at plus 33.5 degrees in declination, and no doubt we are getting some aperture, serious aperture block. Once again, aperture block, NGC496, Galaxy Pisces, magnitude 13.3, 1.6 by 0.9, oblately presented spiral with a lowercase bc. 271 million light years distant, puts it about 115,000 light years across. We're at plus 33.5 degrees of declination and closing in on our final studies of the evening. I may have misspoke because, if this weather continues to hold, I'll be out again in about an hour to do the 500 to 550 series. So this may not be our final studies of the evening. NGC497 is a galaxy in Cetus, magnitude 13, nicely presented at 2.1 by 0.9 arc minutes, spiral with a bar in lowercase bc. Distant 371 million light years, puts it at about 180,000 light years in diameter. We're at minus almost 1 degree in declination. Here we have another partial blocker. We're not likely to see it because the aperture block. It's NGC498. We're almost looking straight overhead, a galaxy in Pisces. Magnitude 16, 0.3 by 0.3 arc minute size, elliptical, 280 million light years distant. This galaxy is probably about 30,000 light years across. We're at plus 33.5 degrees in declination. Neighboring NGC498 is also partially blocked galaxy NGC499, our last study of the 450-499 series. It's a galaxy in Pisces, magnitude 12.1, 1.7 by 1.3 arc minutes, lenticular spiral, 199 million light years distant. We're at plus 33 almost a ½ degrees in declination. We are going to have a look at NGC500 and maybe Messier 33 before I knock off, because I want to be able to compare the views between the two parts of the evening. With 2 bars left on the camera still, we're looking at NGC500, which will be our kickoff galaxy in Pisces. In an hour, however, the scope will have equatorial flipped, which usually gives us access to further north in the sky, although it's not my preferred way of observing because I like to catch things in ascent rather than descent. NGC 500 is a magnitude 15 galaxy, 0.8 by 0.6 arc minutes in size, spiral of the lenticular class, and quite large because it's 550 million light years distant. It's also at plus 5.5 degrees in declination. I do believe we're seeing a galaxy on the screen. Looks something rather faintish right about there. Let's carpe noctem off on this one with Messier 33. There's now only 1 bar left on the camera battery. Okay, we're probably not going to get a particularly good look at Messier 33 this evening because it is virtually overhead and we only got about, if we got 50% of the scope aperture, I'd be impressed. I'll give it a few seconds to evolve. We wouldn't be able to pick up 891 either. I am seeing the core of the galaxy, however, with the spiral arms faintly hinted at going off as an S in this direction. I think what we will do is assume that the seeing is actually pretty good and that we're getting aperture block right now, which explains why 33 may not be giving us the best of possible views. And we will carpe noctem out on the NGC450-499 series, which I should be able to post up on the first day of January in the year of our Lord and Universe 2024. Carpe noctem.